You've probably seen this and wondered, why does the new Bugatti V16 engine sound like a 4-cylinder bike? Well, that's because it is the world's first genuine V16. But is it too perfect? To understand the issue with the Bugatti Sound, you first have to understand this. There are only 2 types of V16 engines. Configuration 1, the double straight 8, and configuration 2, the double V8. V16 engine 1, the double straight 8, is the original V16 engine. It's comprised of 2 straight 8 engines joined to the center, and they created it for being able to fit 2 engines into a racing car. Now, when a straight 8 revs, it follows a certain pattern. Now, there are many versions to this, but the easiest one to understand, the most basic configuration, is 4 up and 4 down. That's the piston. It's 4 up, 4 down. Looks like that, and then it goes like that, and then like that, like that. That's a straight 8 configuration. So what happens is when it revs, if one's up and the next one's down, on the next rotation, this one's up and this one goes down, and the next rotation, this one's up and this one goes down, and it follows through in a pattern. When you have a second engine next to it, it covers any gap between that pattern. So you get 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, the cylinders going in order all the way down the engine. So it ends up being a sound of essentially steps, revving through steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way through. So you just hear, but it sounds like it's going through steps. So just listen for that sound. There's no sort of odd pattern to it or anything. It's just a continuous sound all the way through, which of course makes for a good racing engine. That is the sound of the inline straight 8s joined together to create a V16. Now, the Bugatti actually sounds similar to this configuration, but we'll get back to that later. Next, you need to understand the sound of this engine, the twin V8. Now, the twin V8, which is obviously 2 V8s joined together, are usually high displacement V16 engines, which you find in things like old trucks, the Devil 16 if it actually had this engine in the car, or of course, one of my favorite cars of all time, the Cadillac 16. Now, the sound of this engine sounds like 2 V8s harmonizing together, because that's exactly what it is. So a regular V8 has not necessarily an odd firing pattern, but a bit of an odd pattern. So that's the normal sort of V8 sound. What happens between the gaps of sound? D, space, D, again. What happens is if you get a second V8 next to it and make it rev in between those 2 sounds, then you get a harmonized sound across. So if that sounds familiar, it's also because that particular sound harmonization is what you get with Bugatti's W16 engine. Even though that's actually not 2 V8s, oddly enough, that's actually made of 4 V4s, but that's for another video. So if one type of V16 engine is 2 V8s harmonizing, and the other type is a rising sounding race engine, then what the hell is this thing? What makes the Bugatti Tourbillon's V16 so unique is it's not made of 2 engines joined together. It's actually one singular engine. It's the first engine that was built to be a V16. The problem here is the engine was created with the mindset of creating a perfect petrol engine. Now, the reason for that is because the creators make electric cars. Electric cars are based on precision. Petrol cars have something else to them that electric cars don't have, which is soul. You see, if you actually like cars and know about cars, you know you don't want an engine to be too perfect. It needs to have a bit of a soul to it to give it that extra feeling. Because if it's going to be too precise, it might as well just be electric anyway. So what they've done is they've created an engine so precise, it has everything but the soul of a petrol engine. And that is what's giving it such a strange sound. When the cylinders fire, you've more or less got 4 cylinders firing absolutely perfectly at the same time, then another 4, then another 4, then another 4. What happens if you've got 4 cylinders working absolutely perfectly together at the same time? Sound-wise, they're going to all join together. You've got 4, 4, 4, that's a 4-cylinder. And that's exactly why this sounds like this. So what is the solution here? There's 2 options to fix this thing. Option 1 is the technical side. You either need to adjust the timing of the engine, which is probably going to be near impossible, or an easier fix, which no one would ever do, is attaching a heavier flywheel. You see, a heavier flywheel will make the engine rev down slower, and that'll give a little bit more soul back to the engine. Right now, It's too precise and it's too responsive. Of course, option 2, which they attempt here, is just put your foot down. By running through the engine faster, you get a bit more sound to it. The engine, being a genuine V16, does have potential to be a really good engine. In the past, one engine that is made in this same regard is actually the LFA V10, was also built to be a precision V10 engine. A lot of older V10s were actually V8s with 2 cylinders chucked on the end. So the LFA was not necessarily the first, but one of the first purpose-built V10 engines, and that is one of the best V10 engines, especially sound-wise. This V16 could have potential, but we never know if people are always going to leave the mufflers on and no one's ever going to drive it hard. Realistically, the solution would be titanium long pipes and put your foot down, motherfucker.